Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's your host, Raul Infante, here with Taking Dish Sports, here with my co-host, Alexis Diaz.
What's going on, guys? What's going on?
Hey, so today we're going to cover the NBA playoffs, specifically the Boston Celtics. Forget Game 1. We already saw that game. It seemed like it was a dream come true.
It was a teaser.
And it only came once. So we're going to cover Game 2, Game 3, and Game 4 before Game 5. So, Alexi, go ahead and start off with whatever you got to talk about because we have a lot to cover today.
All right, so I'm just going to skim through each three games, something that I noticed. Game 2, 39 points in the third quarter for Milwaukee. Funny thing is that we were only down by 4 points in the second half. So I'm thinking to myself, we're down by 4 points in the second half, Game 2. Milwaukee needs to come back because we just beat them by 22. So, all right, I'm thinking, all right, we could actually steal this game and actually go to Boston 2-0. Third quarter comes. And how many points Celtics scored? Like, what, 15 points? Not even? 18 points about? But they let Milwaukee score 39 points in the third quarter after allowing them to score less than 30 in each of the first quarters in Game 2. What do you think about Game 2?
Yeah, honestly, I thought Milwaukee was actually going to bring it, so I was happy that they were able to bounce back and get a W. I think it's good for the NBA, even though obviously as a fan, I would want the Celtics to go 2-up in Milwaukee, but realistically, that team is the number 1 seed for a reason. They're talented, they were hungry, they were not going to let us punch them and get them in early trouble. They're the number 1 seed, have a little bit more respect. So when we got 20 piece, I wasn't too worried about it. It was because I've seen it before. One team gets 20 piece the first game, the other team gets 20 piece the second game. All right, now that everybody got their wins out of the ways and the jitters out of the ways, now it's real time to play ball. So again, I didn't think too much about Game 2. My biggest concerns was Game 3 and Game 4. So please start by talking about Game 3.
All right. So before we get into Game 3, one thing I want to say is that Brad Stevens needs to go back to his basics. He needs to go back to last year and look at the tapes. So one thing that worked against Giannis slowing him down was obviously the double team. When Giannis was coming down, whoever was on him, whoever was the closest guy, you cut down and you make it difficult for him to go down to the paint. What was Kyrie Irving doing in Game 3? What was Kyrie Irving doing in Game 3? What was the only person that was switching on Giannis on the double team was Morris every time Al Horford had Giannis one-on-one. The only guy that was switching on their guy or double teaming Giannis was Marcus Morris. Kyrie Irving was actually the one that was trying to switch on Giannis. Kyrie, are you? The dude is literally almost a feet taller than you.
Yeah, so here's the problem with what I had with Kyrie Irving's game. Forget about the refs. Everybody wants to talk about the referees. The referees did screw up a lot of calls in that game. But the biggest thing was I noticed after a miss, let's say, Kyrie is lazy to pass half court. The Milwaukee Bucks know this. They're running back ASAP. What is Kyrie Irving doing? Hey, get my man. I'll switch on you. What does that do? That creates a mismatch for whoever on the other side of the court, creating an easier pick and roll situation, and then Kyrie Irving ends up on Giannis. It happened every single play. Kyrie, if you hustle, that's not going to happen. That's why when the Celtics, not to bring up another game, but when the Celtics started off in Game 4, it was a little bit different because in that game, they slowed the pace down. They weren't taking early shots. They were actually winding down the clock. You're like, oh, man, they're going to shoot with 2 seconds left. Okay, it was working for them. But you slow the game down where they're not beating you to the other side of the court. But going back to Game 3, Kyrie Irving, over and over again, what was he doing? I don't know what his deal was, but the game plan from the jump, referring to last year and Game 1 success, you only double team Giannis. You do not double team anybody else on that team. Why was it that Kyrie Irving, let's say Chris Middleton gets the ball, Jaylen Brown is balling.
Oh, for sure.
He's
MVP.
balling.
MVP for the Celtics so far.
Listen, Al Horford and him, respectfully and easily, are the easiest, best players on the Celtics roster in this year's playoffs. He's playing phenomenal defense as well. Chris Middleton is no joke. And he's been shut down for the most part besides that Game 2.
And he's going to be a Celtics killer too, Chris Middleton.
Right. So Jaylen Brown is doing a phenomenal job guarding him. Why in the world is Kyrie Irving stepping up to guard him, leaving his man alone? That's why you have Pat Connaughton looking like a superstar because he's wide open.
Looking like 6th man of the year right there.
Exactly. So Giannis, let's say Middleton gets the ball. right? Gets the ball. He's double teamed. Oh, guess what? Hey, Chris Middleton sees George Hill on his left. Somebody steps up there. Then you got Pat Connaughton all over the side. Boom, easy three. It was over and over the entire third game.
To be honest, game 3, I felt like it was a replay because I felt like Milwaukee was doing the same exact thing. Celtics were pulling up for 3, brick, clank. That's all you heard every time the Celtics saw the 3. And next thing you know, Milwaukee's running down the court. Boom, easy 2, easy 2. I think they outscored us in fast break points by like 15, 14 points, something like that. But going back to Kyrie, he's definitely out of it in this playoff series. He's definitely out of it. It's something where he's shooting horribly. I think he's shooting 19 for 61 or something like that in the past 3 games. It's threes. He's known to be a consistent shooter, someone that could get out of a shooting slump in the game and be consistent, being a go-to guy to score. He's shooting 4 for 20 from the 3. 4 for 20 from the 3. The guy who was famous three-pointer was the one that beat Golden State a couple years ago when they were down 3-1. Alluding back to about Kyrie switching and going back to his defense and making Pat Connaughton look like a 6th man of the year for like 2 years in a row. Kyrie needs to decide his mind. I feel like Kyrie's lost. I feel like Kyrie's playing lost. I don't know if it's something where he feel like he wants to do a little bit of everything to show that he's the leader or to show that he's a leader. But the way he's playing does not show that you're the leader, because one thing for sure is that I always said of every single Boston great team or every single team Boston had, their leader was a guy who was defensive-minded, a tough, gritty guy. And I feel like Kyrie, if Kyrie sees Eric Bledsoe balling or someone else balling against him, I feel like that affects Kyrie's mental.
Like he's shy, exactly. That's what I was saying. George Hill and Bledsoe, Eric Bledsoe, let's respect him now because he finally earned that. He's outplaying. They're both outplaying Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving's known to be that finisher, the guy that could get to the hoop no matter who's guarding him, no matter who's in front of him, no matter if they got 2 guys double teaming him. He finds a way to score. The only guy that I see doing that consistently in this series is George Hill and Eric Bledsoe. Why is that? And those threes about Kyrie Irving, that has to do with him not being set. A lot of those shots are crazy shots that he's taking.
Random pull-up threes.
Random pull-up threes. Okay, that's okay to do when you're hot.
Exactly.
You need to go to the basket when your team is going cold. How many times have we seen the Celtics be up 10 points, 11 points?
Exactly.
People forget about that in this series. Why? Because as soon as they go up 10, 11 points, and they did it against the Pacers as well, and they did it all season this season, right? They go up 10 points, and then they start slacking off and start chucking stupid threes and stupid shots and rushing their pace rather than taking their time and staying with what they're true. Playing easy, slow, smart, systematic basketball that Brad Stevens hasn't played. Once they go up 10, forget about it. Everybody wants to be superstars. They let off the steam a little. Milwaukee comes back, and what do you know? It's like they shut down because they don't keep that lead. And it happened game 3, and it happened game 4.
I want to go back to game 3 and talk about another player too, Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward had 16 minutes in the first half and only took 4 shots. The only way, listen, Gordon Hayward has an up and down year. He's played to nobody's expectations because everybody had high hopes for him. One thing about Gordon Hayward, and it's proven throughout the season, is when Gordon Hayward's looking for his shot and he wants to drop buckets, he wants to get his 15, 20 points, the Celtics are like 23-4.
Right.
What is he doing only taking 4 shots? 4 shots. He only took 4 shots in the first half when he played 16 games. He should be looking to score and get him back on defense. To score and get him back on defense because that's when he plays the best and that's when the Celtics need him the most, to score off the bench. Another thing I want to allude to is Brad Stevens. I think Brad Stevens giving the green light to this team shooting all those threes when we don't have consistent shooters is an issue. Because what happened was we took 42, 44 threes, and we only made like 15, 16 of them. Right. And what happened is that this team is not getting back on defense. I'll be fine if they take the 40, 45 threes if they're running back on defense, trying to stop the fast break or at least getting back to their guy. But they're not doing that. They're not doing that. And that's what made us lose game 3, was missing all those threes, not getting back on defense, and Kyrie thinking he's LeBron James doing a little bit of everything. I had to do that.
Listen, and now that we're on the topic of Brad Stevens, I'm also a guy that's not impressed by Brad Stevens. 2 reasons. Aaron Baines, right? He was in game 1. He helped out. He's a big body that could help out with Giannis. Why is he not getting the minutes that he deserves? Why is he getting less than 15 points? That lineup that you guys had in game 2, 3, and 4 clearly isn't working, so why not bring the guy back? He brings him in the first quarter. I'm like, all right, they're going to try something different because it didn't work in game 2 and 3. No, game 4 is the same thing. He comes out a couple minutes, then doesn't end up playing again. Giannis is dunking all over the place. Why isn't he in the game? And on top of that, game 3, Brad Stevens. He has Al Horford on the bench when the Celtics finally create a run. The Celtics can't stop that team to save their life. So the second that they are stopping them, why not get your best player, like I said, back on that court? You're down 11. It's the fourth quarter. What are you doing waiting until there's 4 minutes left in the game to bring Al Horford in, the man that could stop Giannis, the only one that could contain him and has been doing everything right on that court?
And Brad Stevens has been doing that all season. If you look at the Celtics game throughout the whole season, you're literally seeing the best players or the hottest players during that game only playing like 4 or 5 minutes in the fourth quarter in a close game. When you're in a close game in the fourth quarter, your starters or your best players need to finish the quarter, put them in 5 minutes left, and let them ball. They're athletes, they're professionals, and he doesn't even give those guys a lot of minutes to begin with. So I don't know why Brad Stevens has those guys on the bench. Hey, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and feel free to give your opinion on this year's Celtics.
Hey, and don't forget to hit that bell button for more notifications. So, with that being said, I know we covered a lot of Game 3 and Game 4, but I want to specifically talk about Game 4 now. Go ahead, Alexis.
Timeouts. Timeouts. You call a timeout so you could gather your troops and your players together, and you could give them some motivation and tell them what to do so you could get out of a shooting slump. How does Milwaukee go on like an 8-0, 10-0 run, right? For like 2 to 3 minutes, the Celtics missing every single shot, not getting a layup, taking shots that I'm like, why are they taking those shots when there's still like 21 seconds left on the shot clock? Brad Stevens, it's called a timeout for a reason. The guy literally just lets his players play. And I guess when you're a player's coach, you trust in your players to get out of it. No, this is the playoffs. When it's the playoffs, you have to coach differently than you do throughout the season to motivate the young guys. And my thing is with him is I feel like he's been outcoached. Game 4, he's been completely outcoached. The fact that Giannis and Middleton were like somewhat missing their shots that they normally hit. Giannis, you were saying earlier, Giannis was taking threes.
Right.
Middleton was missing in the first quarter. The Celtics would have lost by more than double digits, by like 15, 20 points if those guys were hitting the shots in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that first quarter, I called it right away. I'm like, I don't like how this is looking. I don't care if the Celtics end up with a higher score in the first quarter. There's 3 more quarters. You know what the coach said? Exactly what you said, right? Brad Stevens has been outcoached this entire series. What'd he do in Game 3? Everybody in Celtics Nation was pissed off. Why? Because they're like, the Milwaukee's getting the calls. Even the coach was getting the calls. That foul called on Jaylen Brown to get him his 5th foul.
The coach was yelling at the ref.
Exactly.
And he called it 3 seconds later.
Listen, and he ends up getting the call. This is the playoffs. That's what you should be doing. Brad Stevens, in my opinion, needs to be the same way. Listen, I get it. Everybody's personalities are different. But you got to defend your players. He hasn't done anything. If I was a coach of that team, I would have been tossed twice. You would have had the assistant coach.
I would have broken the clipboard.
Listen.
Got into the ref's face, everything.
The assistant coach would have had to been out there. Listen, and another thing is about respect, and we'll get to Kyrie Irving in a second. I don't think the Celtics players, specifically Kyrie Irving, don't respect them. However, the coach of Milwaukee is respected by his players because luckily for the NBA fans, they have the mic'd up, right? When the coach is talking, you know what he said? Hey, no need to panic. They're playing harder than you guys. You guys just have to bring the same intensity. Play harder than them, and you guys will go up. You guys are taking good shots. They're just not going down. That was after the first quarter. Second quarter, it closes out closer, right? Mm-hmm. What happens in the third quarter? They come out more intense. Where the Celtics typically fall asleep is in the third quarter. Celtics are up by 10. The Milwaukee Bucks play hard. And they never look back again. And that's been the recipe, like I said, over and over the entire season against Indiana. That should have never happened. And now against a team that is far superior than them. When I saw them struggling against the Pacers and them being down by 10 and having to beat the Pacers, I'm like, listen, with the star power that Milwaukee has, without Brogdon, the Celtics are going to struggle. And now the true colors are showing. Now, please cover the respect level that Kyrie has for a coach that has never played a single game in the NBA.
So, just to talk about Coach Budenholzer real quick. He was a former Coach of the Year in 2014, 2015. He brought Atlanta Hawks to 60 games, and he went to the Eastern Conference Finals against Cleveland. Cleveland and Miami. But let's talk about Kyrie Irving and respect. if everybody remembers when Kyrie wanted to leave Cleveland, he wanted to talk about how he wanted to be coached by a real coach, someone that's been an NBA mind, that's been around the league for 25, 30 plus years, that is someone that he could feed off and learn so much. Brad Stevens is not that guy. Brad Stevens is a guy who never played college ball. He came from straight from the college level to coach the Celtics. Doesn't have that repertoire of like an NBA coach who's been around big names, who coached big names, Hall of Famers. I don't think Kyrie has 1 ounce of respect for Brad Stevens. Yeah, he has respect to him as like a human, like, hey, how you doing, coach? But do you really think Kyrie wants Brad Stevens as his coach to like help him become the player that he quote unquote was saying? That's not happening. And it's kind of right now, based off Game 5, what we see on Game 5 is pretty much gonna determine the future of the Celtics.
Listen, I don't think the respect is there because after Kyrie shoots 8 for 22 and says, hey, that's never going to happen again, and then he shoots 7 for 22 and then says, I don't care, when asked and called out about his performance in the playoffs, after being that one man that's been saying the entire time that the regular season doesn't count, my friend, you're not LeBron James. Exactly. And you proved that by being outplayed by Bledsoe, as I stated before, and Hill. Now you have to bring it. Now the Celtics are stuck in a situation, right? Because we're going to move on from the games. I'm a little hot right now, so we're just going to move on from that. We're going to talk about Kyrie Irving's future in the Celtics and what that means for a man like AD. Let me be more specific. If the Celtics move on from Kyrie Irving, I feel like the Celtics fans will be more relieved because Brad Stevens can actually control his team and not be pushed around by Kyrie Irving and his diva background, right? But the problem with that is that you're essentially you go back to being an okay team, and without a lot of cap space on there, that's concerning. Who do you end up getting to run the point? Well, you sign Rozier a one year deal. Rozier is gonna try to get paid. So the second option is sign Kyrie to that max deal July 1st, and then trade all your potentially great players for AD. And that's with the risk of AD leaving to whatever team he wants the following year. And where does that leave Kyrie? Possibly in 2 years doing the same exact thing, demanding a trade. And I could just see it. Listen, I watched the Celtics my whole life. I saw them when they were getting guys like Al Jefferson, Wally Zerviak. They had Paul Pierce injured. Sebastian Telfair. Everybody. Ryan Gomes. I'm a true Celtics fan. I don't want it to go back to those days. 07, 08 was the greatest thing that happened in my lifetime. So whatever decision that they make is going to impact this team huge. And Danny Ainge, I hope he gets better. I hope he gets better because he had a mild heart attack. So in all seriousness, I hope that this guy recovers well. I heard he's gonna recover. But man, that is a lot of pressure in his mind and in his heart again in the offseason.
Going back to Danny Ainge, best wishes. Hopefully you recover in full strength because we need you, Trader Danny. We need you, Trader Danny. Now, going back to Kyrie, I'm 50-50 with Kyrie. I love Kyrie. I'm a big Kyrie Irving fan. Individually, his talent, I think he's the best finisher in the NBA. I think he should be attacking the basket more than shooting the ball. I think he should be taking only like 5-6 jump shots. They should be from 3 and just bring it in. Now, the Celtics. The Celtics are in an ugly position. Just because they own Kyrie's bird rights, and they're not going to have cap space for the next 2 years to sign a max player. And that what scares me, because at the end of the day, if you want to win a championship, you need a superstar. You need a superstar, and you need a cast around that superstar. Do we have a young talent that could potentially be that superstar? I think we do. Now, do you trade away your future to satisfy a guy who says that he wants to be a leader but hasn't proven it so far with the guys that you have on your team now? Do you go ahead and waste all those picks and everything that you've done in the past 3 to 4 years to become a young team that could compete? Because if you think about it, when Danny was doing all those trades, getting all those picks, that was when the Warriors were dominating. It was Warriors in Cleveland.
Right.
We're seeing right now the demise of the Warriors, as in Kevin Durant taking over that team and Steph Curry slowly declining to what he was, and Klay Thompson not even being the same Klay. So right now the East is wide open. Do you satisfy a player like Kyrie giving him what he wants to, because Kyrie's still a top 5 player in the East? Or do you actually go ahead, stay with your young core, stay what the game plan was when Isaiah Thomas was in the team, which was, all right, we have these young picks. Let's develop these guys. They're all under 24, 25 years old. Let's see what happens when they start entering their prime and they've been gelling, they're playing together. Me, for one, if Kyrie signs with us, one of the other has to go. Tatum or Brown has to go. I love Brown. I think Jaylen Brown is going to be the better, more consistent talent than Tatum in the future. But Kyrie needs to learn how to be a leader, and Kyrie needs to learn how to be that guy that just going to take criticism and is going to handle great compliments and like, hey, you guys won, Kyrie, you led this team. Kyrie's all smiles. Hey, Kyrie, you guys lost, you guys suck. And he sounds like a teenage girl going through a bunch of high school stuff.
Listen, so I don't know. Like I said, I'm stuck for words. The safest bet to go with is obviously to keep your young core. Let Kyrie walk and make a stupid decision somewhere else. You're not going to win another championship unless you go to LA and everybody's going to clown you. Because if you go to New York, you and Durant being the softest people in the NBA being together, I would love to see y'all in a podium together feeding off of each other's negativities and creating a negative chemistry for everybody else on that team. So good luck there.
Listen.
But we go and sign him. I think the right choice would actually be to sign Kyrie Irving and trade for AD. I think Kyrie Irving would do better if he has that number one star and him being the 1A where not all the pressure's on him because clearly he can't
I'm just going to leave this like this.
That's my take.
If Kawhi or Durant come to the East, you have to resign Kyrie Irving. If those guys if Kawhi resigns and stays in the East, you have to resign Kyrie because Boston is going nowhere anytime soon with the Eastern Conference Finals.
Well, listen, we'll leave it to y'all. We want you guys' answers. We want to know where Kyrie's going, where Kawhi is going, and where everybody else is going to sign. So we'll leave it at that. It's your host, Raul Infante, here with Taking This Sports. Don't forget, guys, we're not only the guys that watch these sports, but we analyze them. Here are my co-host, Alexis Diaz.
Let's go green. Let's go Celtics. There's still some hope.